Good day to all of you. And first of all, I would like to thank the Education Committee of the National Christian Life College and the Maranatha Christian Academy for inviting me today, no, as one of your speakers or your lecturers. So, welcome also to all of you. I hope that you will be able to learn something from the sharing that I'm going to give you today. So, I was tasked to talk about the topic on well being and resilience in the midst of the pandemic. I'm very sure that this topic is really very relevant and timely, especially now that we are going through this very difficult times of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we educators, teachers, and administrators are really very much affected by this because of our migration to flexible learning or online learning. So, I hope that all of us will be able to learn something, as I said, from the sharing that I'm going to give you today. Okay, so let me start by giving you the learning outcomes of today's session. So at the end of this around the 45 to 1 hour lecture, now we are all expected to be able to examine the meaning of well-being and of course resilience in the context of our experiences as educators or teachers, to be able to discover ways of promoting well-being among educators. I think we need that. No, I'll be sharing with you some techniques perhaps of how to cope with the challenges brought about by the COVID-19, and for you of course to be able to demonstrate some coping skills to promote well-being and resilience. So these are the three learning outcomes for today's session. Now, I'd like to begin with sharing result of a certain survey that was conducted very recently. No, the title, the authors are Petilion and McNeil. In the article, Student Experiences of Emergency Remote Teaching, Impacts of Instructor Practice on Student Learning, Engagement, and Well-Being. No? In that article, it says that this COVID-19 pandemic has a great impact on students as well as teachers at the same time. It has caused anxiety, depression, as well as stress. Now, it says there are issues with motivation and engagement. It's difficult for us to motivate our students because of modular learning or online learning. Personal scheduling is also a problem even with us and our students, because the study habits of our students are already affected. They're awake during the night but they are asleep during the day, right? No, there's a problem on faculty communication, and there's a remarkable increase in stress and anxiety. As I said, not only with us educators, but also with our learners. Now, why is there a need to promote wellness among us teachers or educators? You see, we are guiding our students, we are teaching them to be able to cope with the challenges. But I think we educators must be capacitated first before we can capacitate our own students. Now, during this challenging times of remote learning or online learning, there has been an adverse effect on our well-being as teachers. Why? Because of multitasking. We do a lot of things. So imagine if you are not only a teacher but you're also a parent, right? Or let's say a brother or a sister. So when you're at home, you do a lot of things. You do teaching, you attend meetings, you attend faculty development seminars, but at the same time, you need to take care of your husband or your wife, or perhaps aging parents, and of course, your children. You need to cook for them, you need to clean the house, what else? You need to do the laundry. See, so you are doing a lot of things. We, including myself, no, are doing a lot of things all at the same time. We are multitasking. Unlike before, no, pagpasok natin sa school, naiwan na natin yung responsibility sa bahay. So medyo focus tayo sa pagtuturo. Pero ngayon, no, dahil tayo ay nagtuturo sa bahay, hindi naman pwedeng hindi ka magluto. No? So you do all these things all at the same time. And then, as I said, yeah, that's the demand of work from home. No? Sabay-sabay yan. Plus, the stress of thinking of what? Job and financial security. No? A lot of private schools are affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. No? Some teachers perhaps are thinking, ano kaya, may work pa kaya ako bukas? Bukas pa kaya yung school natin bukas? No? You know, this insecurity when it comes to job, no, and it comes to finances, that's really causing a lot of stress. No? And of course, we also worry about our own health. No? Yung ating sariling kalusugan. What if we are requested by our schools to, let's say for example, report to work twice a week? Di ba? So may exposure ka sa labas. Pag uwi mo ng bahay, nandun yung stress na may maramdaman ka lang na masakit sa lalamunan, na ano ka na medyo napaparanoid ka na. No? So we fear for our own health. And we also fear for the health of our own family members who go to work. No? So ikaw lalabas ka twice a week, sila din ganun. Pag uwi sa bahay, hindi mo alam kung ano-anong virus ang daladala nila. No? So these compounding challenges encountered by educators or teachers are causing us a lot of stress. And so therefore, we need to promote wellness among us, no, the educators. Kailangan nating pangalagaan yung ating mga sarili. Okay? And then in another article, no, entitled Educators Feeling Stressed, Anxious, Overwhelmed, and Capable. No? This was published in the journal Transforming Education Through Technology. One of the participants of that survey said, this is a teacher, no? He or she said, he or she is slightly anxious to be out of my comfort zone. Imagine, for the longest time, our comfort zones, no, are our classrooms, our schools. But now we are into online learning. We are into flexible learning. So we were brought out of our comfort zones, and that's not easy. No? But continuing on, no, he or she said, but thankful to still be able to work. Yeah, that's a blessing. Glad to learn new skills or software. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are listening to me right now, no? Did try to explore some technological skills, no? Like for myself, nag-explore ako ng how to do recording on Zoom on my own, how to do Canva para naman mas maganda-ganda yung ating mga PowerPoint presentations. Ano pa, nag-explore ng iba't ibang paraan how to record myself, no? So we did a lot of that, I'm sure, no? And the teacher also said, glad to still communicate with students, worried for safety and health of students. You see, we are not only worrying about our own safety, but we also worry about the safety of our own students. Okay? Then another participant said, frustrated and exhausted. No? Do you feel the same? Do you feel frustrated and exhausted? No? We did not have transitional time, nor did we have a grace period to test our methods. Imagine, no? Let's say last April or May, no, we were asked to transition from face-to-face classes to remote classes. We were not given enough time to practice or to prepare ourselves, no, or to curate our our materials so that it's ready for online classes. We were not given enough time. But you see, we were put in that situation and we just needed to respond, no, to that particular situation. Our school district wanted us to have it perfect within hours. No? Did your principals ask you to make it perfect within a few hours? Or were you given a week, a month, 2 months, or a couple of months? I don't know, no? In our case in UP, we were given around 2 months to prepare, no, for online classes. See, prepare our course packs. No, we were asked to prepare course packs. This is the course packs were actually prepared for those who have no internet connections, those who do not have the gadgets. We had to save the course packs into USBs, and the USBs were sent to the students through courier. But for those who have internet connections, we had to prepare online classes. See, we prepared lessons for three different types of learners. For those who did not have any access to internet, no, that's why we had to send the USBs to do blended learning, both synchronous and asynchronous sessions. And third is to do purely online classes. See? So we had to prepare separate lessons for three different types of learners. No? And moving on, the teacher said, so I felt unsupported and definitely unappreciated. No? So I think this sentence or this statement is for the administrators who are listening right now. Are you giving enough support to your faculty members? Do you even appreciate them for working so hard in preparing all these online materials? Okay. See, so there is enough reason for us to talk about our well-being as teachers and how to be resilient, because we are facing our students, we are facing the parents, and therefore we ourselves should be prepared in facing them. Why? Because you see, we call ourselves as carers. We are caring for the carers. We are caring for other people. We are caring for our students. We are caring for our family members. We are caring for our colleagues, our co-faculty members. But the thing is, and the challenge is, you are a carer, but who will care for you? Who will care for the carers? You see, di ba sabi nila, lalo pag magulang ka, kapag ikaw ay nagkasakit, sinong mag-aalaga sa'yo? Ikaw, teacher, nagkasakit ka, sinong mag-aalaga sa'yo? Who will care for the carers? See? And I think there's no one to care for the carer except yourselves. Ikaw lang. Kaya kailangan mong alagaan yung sarili mo. Dahil kapag ikaw, teacher, nagkasakit, kapag ikaw, daddy, kapag ikaw, mommy, kapag ikaw, lola or lolo nagkasakit, sinong mag-aalaga sa iyo? Of course, our family's there, our relatives are there, pero first and foremost, ikaw mismo ang mag-aalaga sa sarili mo. So therefore, today, I will try to share with you some perhaps coping skills to be able to care for yourself. And therefore, we need to talk about well-being. Sa Tagalog, ang well-being, kagalingan. Kagalingan. What is well-being? Well-being is the experience of health, the experience of happiness and prosperity. In other words, when we say well-being, we talk of good mental health, high life satisfaction, a sense of meaning or purpose, and the ability to manage stress. So when we talk about well-being, hindi lang mental health yan. Hindi lang tungkol sa anxiety, sa depression, hindi lang yan ang pag-uusapan. Pag binating well-being, we also talk about what? High life satisfaction. We talk about happiness. How satisfied are you with your life during this time of the pandemic? We also talk about sense of meaning or purpose in life. Meron bang halaga? Meron bang kahulugan? Meron bang kabuluhan yung buhay mo? That's well-being. And of course, the ability to manage your stress. Okay? So is that clear? So when we say well-being, it's not only mental health, but it speaks about the totality of our experience. No? And in Tagalog, gusto kong i-share ito sa inyo dahil sa akin, napaka-lalim ng kahulugan ng salitang well-being o kagalingan sa Tagalog. Bakit? Kasi ang kagalingan or ang well-being ay nangangahulugan ng kaginhawahan, maginhawa. No? ano pa, kagalingan, maaliwalas. 'Di ba kapag may well-being ka, hindi ka madaling mairita, hindi madaling mainis, uminit ang ulo dahil maaliwalas, no, ang iyong kaisipan, merong katahimikan, komportable ka, meron kang sapat, no? 'Di ba when you say sapat, pwedeng financially, o kumusta eto, no? Enough naman, sapat naman yung sa kinikita naming mag-asawa ngayong time ng pandemya. In other words, hayahay ang buhay. Di ba? A few weeks ago, no, one of my friends, no, nag-message siya sa akin. Sabi niya, Ems, kumusta ka? Sabi ko, eto, maginhawa, masaya, maaliwalas ang buhay. So, well-being is the totality, no, of a human being's wellness o kagalingan. Okay? And no, just to make one very important point, no, yung kaginhawahan, sabi nila sa Tagalog napakayaman. Alam niyo kung bakit, no? Kaginhawahan, meron daw salitang awa. At saan nanggagaling yung awa? Someone up there, di ba? God. Siya yung nagbibigay ng awa, kaya tayo ay maginhawa. No? Ganda-ganda ng meaning. No? So we rely on someone up there to give us, not to provide us with well-being, yung ating kagalingan. Okay. Why? Because well-being, no, entails our emotional well-being, physical well-being, social well-being, workplace well-being, societal well-being. That's according to psychology today. But I added one well-being, and that is spiritual well-being. Okay, so let's try to go over each well-being, no, one by one. I-discuss lang natin ng mabilisan. Of course, when you say emotional well-being, no, kumusta ka in terms of your emotions, especially during this time of the pandemic, no? Teacher, kumusta ang emotions mo, no? Do you feel burnout? O do you feel minsan na ayaw mo nang bumangon, no? Nakakatamad magturo, no? Do you feel na minsan gusto mo lang sabihin na, ayoko na, tama na, no? Punong-puno na, dami-dami ko nang ginagawa, no? If you feel these signs, parang medyo hindi masyadong okay, no? Yung ating emotional well-being. Physical well-being, no? Do you find time to, let's say, relax? To exercise? Do you find time to, yun, yung iba, no? Plantito, plantita, no? Nagbe-bake sila, no? They do walking and all, no? Physical well-being. Social well-being. How are your relationships? Kumusta ang inyong mga relasyon? Sa inyong mga kapamilya, no? Sa inyong mga anak, sa inyong asawa, sa inyong magulang, sa inyong relatives, to your co-workers. No? Kumusta? Nakakapag-usap ba kayo? Nakakapagkumustahan ba kayo? Workplace well-being. Of course, no, I know for a fact that a lot of us are working from home or maybe reporting twice a week or maybe not every day naman siguro, no? But we still keep our relationship with one another. How healthy is our workplace well-being? Do you find time, no, na magkumustahan? Societal well-being. Kumusta ang inyong mga support structures, yung inyong family or your church, of course, no? Your church is considered as your societal well-being because that's your support structure. Yung mga cell groups natin, may mga Bible groups tayo, ganyan. This is societal well-being. And the last is spiritual well-being. So when I talk about spiritual well-being, I'm not talking about religious well-being. It's not that, no? Of course, that's part of it, but it's more than that, no? Spiritual well-being, for example, is your relationship with your environment, with nature, no? Do you involve yourself with arts, for example, no? How do you make sense? How do you put meaning, no? Paano mo ngayon binibigyan ng kahulugan yung buhay mo, no, during this time of the pandemic, no? So these are the major types of well-being. Again, as I said, I'd like to make it very clear when we talk about well-being, hindi lang yan emotions. Kasama dyan ng physical, social, workplace, societal, and spiritual. Is that clear? Okay, lahat to kabuuan. Dahil tayong mga Pilipino, di ba, meron tayong kasabihan, no? ang sakit ng kalingkingan ay dama ng buong katawan. Or, ang sakit ng kalingkingan ay sakit ng buong katawan. So, if you're not okay emotionally, no, syempre physically affected ka. Ayaw mong bumangon. Ayaw mong kumain. Ayaw mong maligo. So, kung hindi ka okay emotionally, hindi ka rin okay physically, socially, syempre, ayaw mong mula lumabas, ayaw mong makipag-usap, no? Blinak mo lahat ng friends mo sa Facebook o kaya nag-deactivate ka. So, socially, you're not okay. Sa workplace mo, ganun din. Ayaw mong pumasok. No? Ayaw mong kausapin yung mga office mates mo. Societal well-being, ganun din. No? Wala kang ganang magdasal, umattend ng church, umattend ng fellowship. And spiritually, syempre, affected na rin yun. So that's what I mean, no? It should be totality. At yun yung i-address natin, no? During this lecture. Okay. Now, moving further, I would like you to answer this question. And if you're, yeah, if you have your notebook or pen with you right now, I'll give you a few seconds to think about your answer now to this question. What was the best thing that ever happened to you during the COVID-19 pandemic? Ano yung pinakamagandang nangyari sa'yo during the time of the pandemic? Okay? I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. What was the best thing that ever happened to you during the COVID-19 pandemic? Okay? So I think you have already written something, or at least no, you have the best thing that ever happened to you during the COVID-19 pandemic in mind. Okay. Usually, no, in the many no, webinars that I have given, no, given this topic, the common answers are: number one, you had plenty of time, quality of time with your family members. You spent 24 hours, 7 days a week with your family members. That's one. Number two, you spend quality time with your husband or with your wife. No? Number three, you had time to clean. Number four, ano pa? You had time to sleep and take a rest for at least no sleep for 8 hours or even 12 hours, 14 hours perhaps, no? Yung bang kinasasabikan mong pahinga at tulog noong may trabaho, nagawa mo especially during the lockdown, di ba? Nakapaglinis ka ng bahay, no? Lahat na ng corners ng bahay niyo naikot mo. Nakapagdasal ka ng mahabang mahaba. You had time to reflect. You had time to meditate. You had time to pray. You had time to what? To do some physical exercises. No? You had time to do your passion, no? Things that you wanted to do before, but because you were very busy, you didn't have the opportunity. Like for me, for example, I had time to learn ukulele during the lockdown. Pero ngayon, dahil work from home na, tinitignan ko na lang yung ukulele ko, hindi ko na masyadong nahawakan, no? Yung iba nagplantito, nagplantita, no? Yung iba nag-bake, at yung iba, no, naka-establish ng kanilang mga online businesses during the pandemic. You see? So, these were some of the best things that happened to us during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, why did I ask that question? It's because I believe that there is always something good that can happen despite of the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic in itself is a negative experience. It's really a bad experience. Imagine it's the whole world suffering because of COVID-19. But asking that question leads us to exploring what's more of, not less of. No? During the COVID-19 pandemic, what is in myself that I could discover more? Na-discover mo na, kaya ko naman pala makasamang asawa ko ng 24 hours a day. Kala ko noon hindi. No? You discover more of your children na, ay grabe, akala ko kilala ko na tong anak ko. Hindi pa pala. Or discovery of, ay, kaya ko palang magluto. Akala ko hindi. Kaya ko palang mag-bake. Kaya ko palang, no? Kaya ko palang mag-garden. Kaya naman pala na hindi mag-grocery. Kaya naman pala na ang gulay na lulutuin mo is straight from your garden. Yeah? Consider asking more of, not less of. Consider asking what to start and not to stop. Kaya ko naman palang mag-record ng sarili ko, so I should start it and doing it more often. What do I want to create and not remove? Perhaps you are creating some kind of a YouTube channel, no? Pwede. Or perhaps naging vlogger ka na. See? Or what do you need to support and not to prevent? No? Maybe like in my case, no, since the time of the lockdown when I myself and my family experienced, I will share that later, experienced the COVID-19, no, I support a lot of, counseling programs, no, online counseling. I do a lot of webinars such as this, no, because that is my advocacy now, which I started because of the COVID-19 pandemic. No? What else? What do I need to reinforce and not to weaken? I want to reinforce, for example, my capacity to teach using online platforms. I want to reinforce that and I don't want to weaken that. So during this pandemic, we need to consider asking what is more of, not less of, to start, not to stop, to create, not to remove, to support, not to prevent, and to reinforce, not to weaken. Because according to David Cooper Ryder, by the way, I'll share it with you later, is the one who discovered, or at least who started what they call appreciative inquiry, or AI. Maybe some of you have heard it before. No? He believes that in every piece of art, there is beauty. In every piece of art, there is beauty. What does it mean? No? Despite this pandemic, despite these challenges that we are encountering right now, there is beauty. And according to David Cooper Ryder, that is appreciative inquiry, or AI. AI means, it's the exploration of what gives life. It's the exploration of what inspires. It's the exploration of what? The good things, the best of what is, despite the difficulties that we are encountering right now. Okay? Now, moving on. The first coping skill, that I would like to share with you, is what we call appreciative photo story. You see, kapag pagod ka na, pagod ka na magturo, nararanasan niyo ba yung after ng synchronous session na let's say, kahit 2 hours lang, pagod na pagod ka. Gusto mong magpahinga. Ako, natutulog ka agad ako. No? O kaya meeting dito, meeting doon, faculty development dito, faculty development doon. You feel tired. And this works for me. I call it appreciative photo story. What is appreciative photo story? No? Or making use of art to a way of what? To reducing your stress, to calm yourself down. It's a way of relaxing yourself. No? Just look at a photo, a beautiful picture, a beautiful painting, or what, marami yan sa Google. And just, look at it very closely. And then look at what do you call this? Focus on something good, the good feeling that photo or picture gives you. And you will feel refreshed. Okay. Now, I'll be sharing with you 10. Now, very quickly, I'll be sharing with you 10 photos. And I would like you to discover the positive feelings or impressions that these photos give you. No? Or what is in the photo that gives you that positive or affirmative feeling or impression? Okay? Now, by the way, these photos are original photos of my son. So, meron siyang watermark. May nakalagay dyan na watermark. So, I would like to request everyone, sabi nga ng anak ko, Mama, okay lang, pero for your eyes only. Sana po wag niyo munang i-screenshot, wag niyo munang i-post, please, because these are original photos of my son. Okay? So again, the instruction is, hanapin ninyo what positive feeling or impression do these photos give you? No? Or that affirmative feeling. Okay? So you still have your pen and paper with you. I would like you to take note, no, of those feelings or those emotions. Okay? So are you ready? This is the first photo. I'm sorry. What positive feeling or affirmative feeling that does this photo give you? Second photo. The next one. Okay, next. Are you writing your answers? Words or phrases that would be fine. Next. What positive feeling does this photo give you? Next. Go. Next. What affirmative feeling does this photo give you? Next picture. Next. Any affirming feeling from this photo? Next one. I think this is the last. Okay. So, you can do this on your own. No? Pag pagod ka na, stress ka na, sabi mo, time out, time purse. No? Hanap ka ng magandang picture. Hanapin mo yung positive feeling that that photo gives you. Okay? Now, let's go over your answers. Maybe some of you felt peace. No? Ang ganda nung the harmony of colors, no? Dark and a little sunshine or a little light color that gives you the feeling of peace, no? The feeling of serenity, no? That feeling of calmness. At the same time, the feeling of strength, no? I love this photo, no? This one, where you have the water there, no? Very, yung raging waters, pero dito sa Manderito, may green and, you know, the peaceful water and the rocks. No? The rock for me is a symbol of strength, no? What else? Maybe some of you felt some kind of courage, no? And then hope, no? That the ray of hope after the, how do you call that, the sunrise, no, that gives you that feeling of hope, the feeling of love. What else? New beginning. Maybe some of you have felt that feeling of light, peace, inner peace. Look at the water, no? The ocean, it's so calm, so it gives you the feeling of peace. God's faithfulness, no? God's faithfulness. This photo, for example, you see, the trees, no, wala na silang mga dahon, no, madilim na, pero that light there, that blue sky, no, for me, no, it's a symbolism of God's faithfulness and refreshing, right? No? So perhaps these are the positive feelings that you felt. No? Now, why is appreciative photo story a means of relieving stress? Why? Because it's a means of communication. You know, when you look at the photo, it tells you a lot of, how do you call this, thoughts, ideas, opinions. It can be positive, it can be, you know, negative. It talks about frustration, joy, you know. But I would like you, of course, to focus on the positive. It reduces anxiety, it relieves stress. No? So in other words, in looking at a picture or a photo, I'd like you to focus on what gives life and what inspires you. No, yun na nga, the feeling of calmness, joy, peace, inner peace, etc., etc. Okay. Now, aside from appreciative photo story, another means, no, another tool or another method of relieving your stress is focusing on positive stories. And I call it appreciative storytelling. In one of the webinars I attended, no, at the onset of this lockdown, perhaps around April or May, no, I was struck with one of the questions asked, no, by the speaker. The question was, 20 years from now, how will you tell the story of the COVID-19 pandemic to your children, to your grandchildren, or to your future students? What does it mean? No? Imagine this is a global phenomenon. It's not only here in the Philippines, but all over the world. And it's part of history. Bahagi na yan ng ating kasaysayan. And if you will be still teaching 20 years from now, or pag nagkaroon na kayo ng mga apo, yung mga future students ninyo, ano ang ikukwento ninyo tungkol sa COVID-19 pandemic? Di ba? Ang dali-dali kasing magkwento na alam nyo ba, no, nung during the time of the pandemic, ganito karami yung infected, ganito karami yung namatay, etc., etc. But have you ever considered telling the story about like sa mga apo mo na, alam mo apo, no? Noong 2020, nagkaroon ng global outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Nagkaroon ng pandemya. Pero alam mo ba, nung panahon na yon, no? Ang daming mga tao na nag-survive, no? Na kahit na hirap kaming mga teachers, imagine, ngayon, naka 1 semester, 2 semesters, 1 year ng online learning. No? So what will you tell your children? Will this be negative stories or will this be positive and appreciative stories? No? Bakit hindi nating subukang magkwento ng mga magagandang bagay? That's what we mean by appreciative storytelling. It is a tool which encourages participants or people to take a positive perspective by rediscovering and recognizing what is going well rather than focusing on problems. No? Ikwento mo sa iyong mga apo, sa mga future students mo, na alam nyo ba, no, nag-gardening ako, nag-bake ako, no, nakapag-play ako ng musical instrument, na-discover ko paano mag-recording, paano gumawa ng PowerPoint, etc., etc. So, we talk about the positive stories. That is appreciative storytelling. Okay. Now, another tool perhaps or skill that we teachers or educators must learn during this time of the pandemic para to maintain our wellness, our well-being is mindfulness. Mindfulness means what? Focusing on the moment. Focusing on right now. No? I'd like you to focus on that poster that I made. No? I made that through Canva. So kung gusto nyong, hindi kayo marunong mag-drawing or no, ako ko na yan, stress reliever ko na ang paggamit ng Canva because lumalabas yung aking pagka-artistic. No? In one of the webinars I attended, no, by Dr. Hani Karandang. Dr. Hani Karandang is a famous psychologist. I was struck by her question. Sabi niya, your coffee is there for you. Are you there for your coffee? By the way, I'm a coffee drinker. I'm a coffee lover. No? The first thing that I do in the morning is to have my coffee. At the beginning of the lockdown, nauna kasi kami sa Manila, parang first week of March or second week of March pa lang, na-lockdown na kami. I got to enjoy yung moment in the morning when all my children are asleep, no? My quiet moment of prayer. So habang nagdadasal, no, in-enjoy ko yung coffee ko. That's mindfulness, enjoying the moment. Pero noong nag-start ang work from home, nawala na yun. Kasi naging busy na. Imagine, 8 o'clock in the morning, may meeting ka na, maya-maya may webinar ka, maya-maya may klase ka. Nag-start ako, usually I start at 7 or 8 o'clock. Kaharap ko sa screen. Minsan natatapos ako 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight yan So, I never enjoyed na my coffee. So, I was struck, no? When Dr. Hani Karandang asked that question, your coffee is there for you. Are you there for your coffee? Your breakfast is there for you. Your lunch, your dinner is there for you. Are you there for your meals? Do you get to enjoy them? Or habang nagme-meeting ka na sa harapan ng screen, no? Sige, sige, sumusubo ka pa. No. Sabi ni Dr. Hani Karandang, find that moment wherein you are mindful only of yourself. You enjoy every sip of the coffee. You enjoy every spoon of the food that you eat. Every bite of your food. Enjoy chewing your food. That is mindfulness. You relax. You have to set aside some time for yourself. At alam nyo, ito very practical and I agree with that. Sabi ni Dr. Hani Karandang, the best place where you can enjoy that moment of mindfulness, you know where? Sa banyo. And ako, I agree with that. Alam niyo yung mga bright ideas ko, yung bright opinions ko, they come kapag nasa banyo ako. Either pag naliligo ka or nakaupo ka sa throne or whatever. Do you have that experience too? Paglabas mo ng banyo, ay oo nga, alam ko na. No? Tama pala yun. Mindfulness, you practice that in the bathroom. Why? Sabi ni Dr. Rani Karandang. Because that's your place. Nobody could ever disturb you. Oh, siguro kakatok, mami. But that's your place of mindfulness. And there are some practical, how do you call this, tips. How to practice mindfulness. Kapag feeling mo, sasabog ka na, dami-dami mo nang ginagawa. Sabi ko kanina, time first. This is how to practice mindfulness. Number 1, stop. S. Stop, pause, and focus. Kapag ang dami-dami mo nang gagawin, utang na loob, pwede bang tumahimik ka muna? Umupo ka, stop, pause, and focus. Teka muna, ano bang gagawin ko? Ano dapat kong gawin? May estudyante akong may problema. May estudyante akong suicidal. Yung co-faculty ko na de-depress siya. Ako din apektado. Pause. Focus. Okay, so that's the first one. Second, take a deep breath in and out. I'll teach you later on how to do some breathing. Only one. There are so many methods, but I will teach you one breathing exercises, which really works for me. No? So, tumahimik ka lang, pause, and then take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale. 3, observe and acknowledge. Observe, acknowledge, meaning, okay, tumahimik ka, no? Nagagalit ka, okay? No? Name your feelings. Name your emotions. Huwag mong sabihin, hindi ako galit. Hindi ako napapagod. No. Acknowledge your feelings. Galit ako ngayon, naiinis ako ngayon, mainit ang ulo ko ngayon, naiirita ako ngayon. Take a deep breath. And then breathe out. And then, kapag nakapag-breathing exercises ka na, alam mo na, na-acknowledge mo na nagalit ka, naiinis ka, no? Pagod ka na, gusto mo nang umiyak, etc. Proceed with calmness. Okay? If you do this, you stop, pause and focus, breathing exercise, observe and acknowledge, proceed with calmness, wala kang masasaktang tao. Hindi yung galit ka, namura mo na, or tumaas na yung boses mo, no. You proceed with calmness. And you save yourself from stress. Do you get it? Okay. So that's one practice that you could do. No? Ang dami ko nang tinuro, ha? Appreciative photo story, appreciative storytelling, and then mindfulness. Okay. Third, reframe. Reframe. No? Diba yung frame ganyan? Reframe, medyo ganunin mo ng konti. What is reframing? Seeing things differently. Kung sa COVID-19, nung una ang tingin mo, ang pangit na experience, maraming nawalan ng trabaho, maraming nagkakaroon ng virus, see things differently now. Imagine, nagkaroon ako ng time for my family, nakapagluto ako, nakapag-garden ako, ano pa, no? Nakapag-Canva ako, nakapag-ukulele ako, nakapag-pray ako ng matagal, nakatulog ako ng matagal. See things differently. Reframing is a technique that consists of identifying and then changing the way situations, experiences, events, ideas, or emotions are viewed. It is the process by which such situations or thoughts are challenged and then changed. See? So, hindi mo na sasabihin na, I can't. No? Sasabihin mo na, I can. Kaya ko to. See? So, you see things differently. That's one way of helping yourself to relieve stress. Okay? Tignan mo ano yung maganda. Remember, sabi ko kanina, tignan mo what is inspiring, what is life-giving. Do not focus on the problem, focus on the solutions. Okay? So that is reframing, seeing things differently. In other words, you have to change your mindset. Reframe. Reflect on your own philosophy. Dati, ang philosophy mo sa pagtuturo, no? Ay dapat nagle-lecture ka lagi. No? Dapat kasi ikaw ang teacher. Dapat, hindi na. Ngayon, you have to trust your students. Change your philosophy. Reframe. Focus on your strengths. Ano yung kaya mong gawin? Do not focus on your weaknesses. And in teaching, change your role. Dati ikaw lagi yung nagle-lecture. Ngayon, hindi na. Facilitator ka na lang of learning. Okay? So that's reframing. Change your mindset. Focus on the positive. Focus on what gives life. Focus on what's inspiring. Reflect on your own philosophy. Dati, no? Ikaw yung philosopher. I'm sure you can also learn from your students. Focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses, and change your role. Hindi na ikaw lagi yung lecturer. Allow your students to discover their own learning. Okay? Now, this is another technique. Marie Kondoing your curriculum. Have you heard of Marie Kondo? No. Have you seen some of her videos? No, yung throw away what's not essential. Just keep those that are important and essential. Marie Kondo your curriculum. And I think this is the wisdom behind the Department of Education coming up with the list of the MELCs, na most essential learning competencies. That's one way. No? Dati-dati, no, kapag face-to-face yung classes natin, ito yung materials natin, tayo yung nagle-lecture, ganyan. Ngayon, ibahin na natin. Alam nyo, sabi nila, this is common experience that I've heard from my colleagues. Ang hirap-hirap naman magturo ng online, ganyan. Kasi ang ginawa nila, the same materials ng face-to-face classes, yun din ang ginamit nila sa online classes. No. We have a different technique of doing online classes. You just have to trust your students that they will do their homework. No? So in terms of competencies, no, let's try to, hanapin natin, identify natin, ano lang yung most essential competencies that our students need to learn during this time of the pandemic. What are the soft skills that they need to learn? Survival skills that they need to learn. They need to learn empathy. They need to learn compassion. They need to learn consideration. Ano pa? Being able to adapt to their environment. These are the skills. These are the essential skills that they need. So, Marie Kondo your curriculum. Yung mga outcomes or yung mga competencies that can be learned perhaps later after the pandemic, i-postpone na muna natin. Let's focus on the essential. Okay? So moving on, resilience. What is appreciative resilience? Of course, appreciative resilience, according to Joan MacArthur Blair and Jeannie Cockle, no, in their book, Building Resilience with Appreciative Inquiry, no, they say that this is also based on principles of appreciative inquiry. AR, appreciative resilience, is based on the principles of appreciative inquiry. What is resilience? According to MacArthur Blair and Cockle, no, resilience is the ability to sustain or persevere in the most complex situations and life experiences. No? Look at the image, the bamboos. Di ba ang kawayan kapag bumagyo natutumba? Pero pagkatas ng bagyo, tumatayo ulit siya at hindi siya nababalik. Yun daw ang resilience. Resilience is the ability to, to bounce back to the former, form. In fact, sometimes sabi nila even better after a certain problem or after a certain, challenging situation. That is resilience. And according to David Cooper Ryder in an article he published in April 2020, sabi niya, during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, there is one silver lining. And what is that silver lining? Resilience. Filipinos, by the way, no, tayo mga Pilipino, in a research conducted in Asia, we are number 9, no, in terms of resilience. Diba? May bagyo, no, may volcanic eruption, may flood, eto COVID-19, pero ito tayo, buhay pa rin tayo. We are very resilient people. So according to David Cooper Ryder, resilience, for example, can grow. Values can be lived. They come alive instead of merely espoused. So, ang bawat isa sa atin, merong kakayanang maging resilient. It's just a matter of letting it grow and develop during this COVID-19 pandemic. So, appreciative resilience, no, is that which assists people in developing their own understanding and personal call to resilience, again, as I said, by using AI principles and practices. In other words, appreciative resilience is that which sustains us as hope blooms, as despair visits, and as forgiveness opens our hearts. Okay, I repeat. Appreciative resilience is that which sustains us as hope blooms, as despair visits, and as forgiveness opens our hearts. And this can be presented through this AR model where you have, no, at the outer circle, you have the AI principles, AI processes, or the appreciative inquiry principles and processes. But at the inner circle, you have the 3 elements of AR or appreciative resilience. And these are hope, despair, and forgiveness. Okay? Now, let's go over each element one by one. So we have 3, despair, forgiveness, and hope. The first element of appreciative resilience is despair. What is despair? It is defined as the dark night of the soul. No? Despair is an experience where you cannot see a clear path forward, when outcomes cannot be seen, and there are a lot of doubts. Ito yung experience of despair. And I'm sure, during this time of the pandemic, all of us have experienced despair. Okay? Now, moving on. Despair, no, is universal. What does it mean? Sabi ko nga, walang excuse, no? Walang taong excuse ngayon, no? Dito sa pakiramdam ng despair. No one is exempted from experiencing this. That's according to Soren Kierkegaard. Siguro kahit yung mga mayayamang tao, may-ari ng SM, ng mga ganyan, I'm sure, no, they also felt this feeling during this time of the pandemic. But you see, no, sabi nga kung nanonood kayo ng Korean drama, no, it's okay to not be okay. Or it's okay not to be okay. Kung nakakaramdam kayo ngayon ng despair, okay lang yan. It's a valid feeling. Yan ang valid feeling ngayon. Parang sabi nila, parang ang invalid feeling ngayon ay yung sabi niya, wala ang problema, hindi ako pikta. No, yan na yung invalid feeling ngayon. So if you're feeling despair, valid yan. Because it's universal. But, you have to remember that feeling of despair is not permanent. Should not be permanent. Okay lang yan, hindi ka okay, nairita ka, malungkot ka, okay lang yan. Pero ang hindi okay ay if you nurture that feeling of not being okay, kapag inalagaan mo yan. See? Kaya nga ito, pinag-uusapan natin how to cope, no? How to relieve our stress kasi hindi pwedeng panghabang buhay na ganyan yung feeling mo. Otherwise, kailangan mo na ng professional help. Do you get it? No? So it's okay not to be okay, but the feeling should not be permanent. You have to decide to outgrow, no? Lumabas ka sa feeling of despair na yan. How? By these skills that I've been teaching you. Mag-breathing exercises ka, mag-mindfulness exercises ka, mag-photo story ka, etc., etc. That's one way of helping yourself. Okay. Now, what are your experiences of despair during the COVID-19 pandemic? Okay? I'm sure you have, no? Nalungkot ka kasi hindi mo nakikita yung mga kaibigan mo, no? Nagkaroon ka ng feeling of despair kasi hindi ka sure kung may trabaho ka pa o wala, o kaya nawalan ng trabaho yung isa sa mga kamag-anak mo, ay anak mo or partner mo, Nakakalungkot naman talaga. Araw-araw nakikita mo tumataas yung cases, no, ng COVID-19 cases. O kaya nakikita mo, nakaka-despair kaya yung may kamag-anak ka or kaibigan ka or kakilala kang namatay, hindi ka man lang makapunta, no? Nag-aano ka na lang, no? Yung e-funeral na sabi nila or e-wake, no? Kikita mo na lang sa Zoom, naka-Facebook live sila, ganyan. Nakakalungkot. But again, as I said, okay lang yan. Pero, hindi pwedeng panghabang buhay na ganyan yung feeling mo. Okay. Now, this time, let me share with you my family and my experience of despair during the COVID-19 pandemic. No? March, mga first or second week of March, during the lockdown, ako at saka yung mga tatlong anak ko had to do home quarantine or self-quarantine. Why? Because apparently, yung office mate ng anak kong panganay ay may tito na doktor na nakasama sa isang birthday party ng lola na nag-COVID-19 positive at namatay. So may direct exposure siya. So we needed to do home quarantine kasi baka mamaya, di ba? Nakaka-despair nung habang nasa quarantine kami. Nakaka-despair yung nakaramdam ka lang ng panunuyo ng lalamunan eh. Alam, baka mamaya na-infect na ako, no? Kaya medyo mainit lang yung pakiramdam mo. Oh, alam mo yun, nakaka-paranoid at nakaka-despair. Now, 3 days after our self-quarantine or home quarantine, eto na. Yung nakikita niyo po sa screen is my daughter. No? She's now in Germany. Nag-aral siya ng master's sa Germany. At that time, galing siya ng study tour from Brussels. Pagbalik niya ng Berlin, sabi niya, masama ang pakiramdam ko, sabi niya. Parang nilalagnat ako, masakit ang ulo ko. At that time, hindi sumagi sa isip ko na it was COVID. Never, never. Sabi ko lang sa kanya, anak, magpahinga ka, siguro napagod ka lang, so matulog ka. Natulog siya. Then at the middle of the night, nag-message siya. Sabi niya, ang taas ng lagnat ko. Kinabahan na ako. Sabi ko, sige anak, pagkagising mo bukas, you go to the clinic and have yourself tested. So nagpa-COVID-19 positive, COVID-19 test siya. No? Sabi ng doktor, inassure naman siya ng doktor na bata ka pa, gagaling ka, palakasin mo lang yung immune system mo, ganyan. So bumalik siya sa apartment. And by the way, she lives alone. She lives by herself. Wala siyang kamag-anak doon. She lives alone in her apartment. So syempre ako, I was worried about my family. 3 yung anak kong nandito. Nag-aalala din ako sa kanya. So sabi daw ng doctor, you will get the result mga 3 or 5 days later. So after 3 days, may tumawag sa kanya. Sabi ng doctor, positive na siya. COVID-19 positive siya. So when I heard that news, nakahiga ako, biglang nabalikwas ako kasi nag-message siya, Mama, tumawag yung doktor, COVID-19 positive ako. Hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin ko. Imagine, kung ikaw yung magulang, ang layo-layo ng anak mo, gusto mong, alam mo yun, I wanted to go to Germany to take care of her, but I couldn't. there were limitations. Hindi pwedeng bumiyahe. Of course, the finances that's involved, no? So sabi ko lang sa kanya, anak, paano yan? And anyway, to make the long story short, the rock bottom of my despair was when I thought of death. Sabi ko, paano yung kung matuluyan siya? Paano kung mamatay siya? Paano kung, alam mo yon? So I was thinking, paano i-cremate siya? Iuwi ba yung, alam mo yun, yung ashes niya? No? Na-relieve lang ako when I asked my niece who is in Norway. Sabi ko, anak, kapag ba ang COVID patient ay namatay abroad, na Pilipino, ay iuwi ba yung ashes niya kapag siya ay cremate? Sabi niya, oh naman tita. It gave me a sigh of, I mean, death pa rin yun, no? Pero parang ay at least yung ashes naman pala. Ganon. So, medyo nabuhayan ako ng loob. And you know what? Ito yung coping. Yung mga sinishare ko sa inyo ng mga techniques, how to relieve stress, no, how to help yourselves. Ito yung mga pinagdaanan ko. Number 1, what were my coping mechanisms? Number 1 is prayer. A lot of quiet moments to pray. That's number 1. Dasal, dasal, dasal. Pagising sa umaga, dasal. Number 2, mindfulness. Yung sabi ko na I enjoy my coffee every morning. Kasi magkaiba yung time dito at saka time ng Germany. Gigising ako ng maaga. Magbubrew na ako ng coffee ko. Magko-coffee ako. I enjoy my coffee habang ako'y nagdadasal. Habang hinihintay kong magising ang anak ko. Kasi yung assurance, nagme-message agad ako. Sabi ko, anak, message mo ako pag gising mo. Kasi pag nag-message siya, that's an assurance for me na okay siya. Kasi alam mo yung takot na baka may mangyari sa kanya during the night, yung difficulty of breathing and all, paano yun, siya lang mag-isa, etc. No? Ano pa, naglinis ako ng bahay. I did a lot of cleaning. Pangalawa, another thing is, I listen to music. That's another one. No? For in the interest of time, hindi natin magagawa yun. But I did a lot of, listening to reflective music. Ano pa? I listen to my favorite singers. And guess who is my favorite singer? No? Martin Rivera, Gary Valenciano, time ko, no? Kaka-relate ba kayo sa time ko? What else, no? Nanahi ako, no? Gumamit ako binalikan ko yung lessons ko sa HE, no? Home economics. Nanahi ako, kasi wala naman akong sewing machine, no? So gamit lang ang kamay ko, nakagawa ako ng throw pillowcases, etc. These were my coping mechanisms. I connected myself. No? Kaya nga hindi dapat social distancing, no? Physical distancing lang. Bakit? We can also be socially connected. No? I connected with my friends. No? Nakabuo kami ng mga prayer groups namin online. See? So these were my ways of coping with that despair that I was experiencing at that moment. Okay? So, you have to decide, you have to help yourself. Don't dwell on that feeling of despair. Okay? Now, the second element is forgiveness. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness is that animating energy that makes forward movement possible. And let me remind you that forgiveness is a choice. It's a choice. It's a decision. Do you agree with me? It's a choice to give up resentment, to give up anger, fear, and step towards accepting things as they are. During this COVID-19 pandemic, there were a lot of things that were beyond our control. The spread of the virus, that's beyond our control. No? Yung mga pasaway dyan na ayaw mag-mask at mag-face shield, these are beyond our control. And you see, sometimes you just have to accept things as they are. No? Huwag na tayong manisin ang gobyerno ganito, yung ayuda ganyan. No? Let's give up resentment. Let's give up anger. Let's give up fear and accept things as they are. Okay? Now, it's also a gift that you give to yourself. It does not change the past, but it changes the future. I repeat, forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself. It does not change the past, but it changes the future. Do you agree? Diba? Ba't mo kailangan i-stress ang sarili mo? These are beyond our control. Accept things as they are. Mhm. Okay, that's forgiveness. Now, what are your experiences of forgiveness during this pandemic? Kanina tinanong ko, how are your relationships? Are there things that you need to forgive during this time of the pandemic? Now, let me continue with my experience or my family story of forgiveness. What were the things that I needed to forgive? Number one, I needed to forgive my daughter, and I needed to forgive those people in her university who are in charge of their study tour. Number one, my daughter. I had to forgive her because she is stubborn. Matigas ang ulo. Ang nangyari kasi, when they were in Brussels, the institutions that they were supposed to visit canceled their visits because of the COVID-19, the spread of the COVID-19 virus. So they were just staying in the hotel. Hindi rin sila makalabas. Although ang sabi niya, yung mga kasama daw niya, yung mga klase niya, namamasyal pa din, matigas din ang ulo. So sabi niya, Mama, pwede bang bumalik na ako ng Berlin? Iiwanan ko na yung mga kaklase ko, mauuna na ako. I told her, no. Wait for them. Kung ayaw mong lumabas ng hotel, ayaw mong mamasyal, stay in your hotel and do your, your readings there. Sabi niya, Ma, hindi kasi na, okay, fine. Ang tigas ng ulo. Bumiyahe pa rin siya. They went to Brussels by train. She returned to Berlin by plane. So, hindi ko alam kung saan niya nakuha yung virus. Tigas ng ulo, di ba? But I needed to forgive her. Sabi ko, wala naman na akong magagawa. May sakit na nga, magagalit pa ako. Maiinis pa ako sa kanya, nandiyan na yan eh. So I needed to accept it. Pangalawa, those who were in charge of the study tour. Bakit tinuloy nila? Pwede naman nilang i-cancel or i-postpone na lang. And I wanted to email them and, complain. Pero sabi ko, wala, tapos na eh. Ano pa magagawa ko? I just needed to accept things as they are. And you know what? When I decided to forgive, when I said, wala naman na akong magagawa, tapos na, nandyan na yan. That was the time when I felt excited of what's going to happen. Which brings us to the third element of appreciative resilience, which is hope. What is hope? Hope is believing that the future will open possibilities. It looks at what is and what might be. No? Meaning, nung nakapag-forgive na ako, nung sabi ko wala naman akong magagawa, ni-let go ko na, doon ako naging excited of what's going to happen. Sabi ko, siguro pagkatapos nitong COVID-19 na ito, at kapag gumaling na si Kelly, yung anak ko, marami siguro siyang may inspire. And true enough. No? Nung nag-tweet pa lang siya na COVID positive siya, ang dami ng DM sa kanya na, can we interview you? Can we ganyan? Sabi niya, hindi po ngayon, pag magaling na ako. And true enough, no? She was interviewed on TV, on radio, Rappler, CN, how do you call this? Ano pa? Mga bloggers, ganyan, no? Bloggers and vloggers, no? Okay. I got more excited with what's going to happen. Hope is a snapshot of a person's current the goal-directed thinking, highlighting the motivated pursuit of goals and the expectation that those goals can be achieved. No, parang snapshot, para siyang screenshot of what you want to happen in the future. Ganon. Okay. So what were your experiences of hope during the pandemic? Do you experience hope? No? Do you look forward to that day when finally we have the vaccine? Do you look forward to that day when finally you could go back to your classrooms and meet your students face to face? You could meet your friends, your colleagues, your co-teachers. Now, let me now end my sharing or my story. What were our experiences of hope during the COVID-19? Yun na nga, no? I became more excited of what's going to happen. No, my daughter will be inspiring a lot of people. And eto na, what I'm doing, since March, April, when I give webinars to teachers, kahit na anong audience, no? This is now my advocacy. Well-being and resilience during these pandemic times. And not only in the future pandemic times, whatever crisis that comes, that we may experience in the future. No? So, what were my sources of hope? Number one, Kelly's positivity. My daughter is really very positive. Sabi nga niya I am my own cheerleader. I am my own cheerleader. Meaning, nobody could ever cheer you up except yourselves. No, her positivity, nakakahawa. I did not see her cry. I did not see her feel nervous. No? Pag sinasabi, anak, paano ka na? Sabi niya, maano ka ba? Okay lang ako. No? Although pagkatapos nung na-declare siya na clear na siya, ang dami rin niya namang kinuwento, pero hindi niya, na pinagdaanan niya, na sabi niya, may night daw nahirapan siyang huminga, mag-isa sa apartment, pinessage daw niya yung mga friends niya, sinasabi niya na pag may mangyari sa akin, ganito, ganyan, ganyan, no? But her positivity, number two, that was one of my sources of strength. Number two, my family. While we were on quarantine, no, my family was there to support us, no. Kakatok, tita, ito na yung groceries nyo, yun yung support from my friends, no. What else? In her case, dahil mag-isa siya doon, ang daming mga, I call them angels. No? A lot of angels were sent to her. Nung nabasa nung tweet niya, yung ibang mga Filipino students, yung iba hindi niya kakilala, nagme-message, sabi, Kelly, please open your door. We brought you some groceries. So, nandun na agad sa pintuan niya. Di ba angels yun? No? I got to talk with the ambassador every day. No? Kasi minomonitor din yung progress niya. No? A lot of people, the Filipino community, no? In Berlin. Sila yung naging angels and support niya. See? These were my sources of hope. And of course, my faith. My faith in God. I really held on. Alam mo very real sa akin, yung one of my favorite Bible passages is, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. I was so helpless. Wala akong magawa but to bend my knees in prayer and say, Lord, please take care of my daughter. Lord, please take care of my family. And God was my ultimate source of hope. Okay? Yeah. That's my story. And therefore, no, we as teachers, we as educators, have to develop that empathy. May pinagdadaanan, kung tayo may pinagdadaanan din yung ating mga estudyante. Kung ikaw ay school administrator, may pinagdadaanan din yung mga faculty members mo, yung mga staff mo. And so therefore, let's learn to see things with the eyes of another, to listen with the ears of another, and feel with the heart of another. This is my reflection, of course, from the word empathy. See with the eyes of another, listen with the ears of another, and feel with the heart of another. In other words, empathy is being able to communicate that healing message. Healing message. Of what? Hindi ka nag-iisa. We are in this together. Or that healing message of, kasama mo ako. Hindi kita iiwan. Andito lang ako. No? Okay. So that's empathy. So, kapag okay na ang well-being mo, resilient ka na, mapapractice mo ng empathy. Hindi na iinit ang ulo mo kasi makikita mo na what's positive. You will be able to see the situation with the eyes of another. You'll be able to listen to your students using their own ears and feel them, no? Using the heart of another. Did you get it? And I think this COVID-19 pandemic, this situation, is an opportunity for all of us to continue answering that question, who am I? Remember yung spiritual well-being na sinabi ko kanina. How do you make sense of your life? How do you see the purpose of your existence in the midst or in the context of this COVID-19 pandemic? Ako nakita ko na, who am I? What's my purpose now? Having experienced, I and my children having experienced the challenges of COVID-19, for me to inspire people like you, to inspire educators like you, parents like you, to be resilient during this time of the pandemic. Mary Holloway says that resilience is knowing that you are the only one that has the power and the responsibility to pick yourself up. Caring for the carer starts from you. You care for yourself. You have to be resilient. Okay? Now, this is the breathing exercise that I would like to share with you. The 478 breathing exercise. No? Breathing exercises, what are the benefits? It decreases fatigue, reduces anxiety, reduces symptoms of asthma, better stress management, reduced hypertension, reduced aggressive behavior, reduced migraine symptoms. They are very helpful, I'm telling you. You combine breathing with mindfulness and appreciative photo story or appreciative, uh, storytelling. I'm sure you'll be better. Okay, so this is how you do it. Breathe in quietly through the nose for 4 seconds and then hold the breath for a count of 7 seconds. No? Hold mo yung breath mo for 7 seconds. Exhale forcefully through the mouth, pursuing the lips and making a sound for 8 seconds, and then repeat the cycle up to 4 times. Okay? So, can we do it together? Let's take a comfortable position while you're seated. So, I'll give the cue, okay? Okay, are you ready? So, let's do the breathing exercises. Breathe in for 4 seconds. 1, 2, ready, go. Hold. Exhale. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay? How do you feel? Do you feel relaxed? No, parang yung brain, no, parang nare-relax siya. So, you can do it, no, by yourselves. No, hindi na natin gagawin 4 times, no? Because before I end, let's do the breathing exercises and let's do this together. We have the self-compassion break. No? So, again, let's do the breathing exercises. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay. Now, may I invite everyone to put your right hand on your chest. Okay, and repeat this. Say these things together. We pray. We say these things together. Okay. The self-compassion break. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I accept this moment exactly as it is. May I accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. May I give myself all the compassion I need. Okay? So, you have to remind yourself. So, pag feeling mo hindi ka na okay, do the self-compassion break. No? Be kind to yourselves. Accept the moment exactly as it is. Mindfulness. Accept exactly as I am in this moment. Galit ka, inis ka, mainit ang ulo mo. No? May you give yourself all the compassion you need. Okay? So with that, thank you so much for listening to this lecture or to this sharing. This has been your speaker, Dr. Emely D. Dicolen of the National Teacher Training Center for the Health Professions, University of the Philippines, Manila. Now, if you have queries or if you have questions, you may email me at eddicolen@up.edu.ph. And what you see on the screen, by the way, I'd like to share with you, no, this is the journal, or International Journal of Appreciative Inquiry, where this story, the one that I've shared with you, no, my family's lived experience of appreciative resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic, was published. Now, I wrote it, and of course, I co-authored with my daughter. That was published only November, no, last month, 2020. And then I also have how do you call this, a channel, a mobile channel. You can, download it, and then you can listen to some of my lectures. And then these are photos of the books that I have self-published. Okay. And before I finally end, I would like to remind everyone, there's going to be an evaluation link, a Google form that you need to accomplish for the evaluation of my lecture, because I need that, no, for my university. Okay? So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, educators who are listening or who have listened to my lecture, I hope that you will be able to live and, how do you call this, practice the skills that I have shared with you in this lecture. So, thank you very much.